This year's African Union Summit will be held this week in Addis Ababa under the theme Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. Cultural artifacts loaded and dispersed across museums and private collections worldwide have become a central focus in the ongoing discussions about reparations. These stolen items are seen as a form of cultural theft that continues to harm the heritage and identity of African nations. Professor Hakim Adi, a UK-based expert in African history and the diaspora, considers that African countries would be much stronger in their demand for the return of stolen cultural artifacts if they are united under the auspices of the African Union. The call for repatriation has gained significant momentum as African governments, diaspora communities, and international organizations increasingly advocate for the return of these cultural artifacts to their rightful homes. Speaking to INA, Professor Adi says that the AU, alongside individual governments, should prioritize these critical issues.
Sacred and other artifacts stolen from Magdala during the British invasion of Ethiopia in the 19th century. All of these need to be returned to Ethiopia as just one example. There are many other examples from throughout the African continent that people are familiar with, the Benin bronzes, and there are so many artifacts stolen from various African countries, effectively simply looted, and they all need to be returned.
The expert pointed to the artifacts looted from Magdala during the British invasion of Ethiopia in the 19th century as just one example of stolen cultural property that must be returned. This is just one example among many, such as Benin bronzes and countless other stolen cultural artifacts from across African continents, according to Professor. These items were looted, and their return is crucial, he added.
African countries would be much stronger in those demands for the return of stolen cultural artifacts if they united under the auspices of the AU and as a continent demanded the return of these artifacts. So that is certainly the kind of repair that could be undertaken by the AU if it was minded to take that action. That would be send out a very, very powerful message.
Professor Adi emphasized that a unified demand from the African countries would strongly advocate for cultural reparations. The professor further elaborated that African countries would be much stronger in those demands for the return of stolen cultural artifacts. Such a unified stance would send a powerful message signaling the urgency of cultural reparations and the need for the African Union to take binding action in this respect.